As it's populating, you can see we have a lot of things to go over today, such as voice typing, headers, footers, watermarks. We're going to talk about the new menu item and the building blocks and etc. So we're going to go ahead and dive in. But what we're going to do is go to objective 1, which is get started and organized. If you were in the beginning one, it's a very similar format. We'll get a copy of a document that you can mess with, and then it could be yours to play with. So objective 1 is to get started. We talked about how we can navigate to Google Docs, multiple ways and how to access and start new Google Docs in the previous training. But today we're just going to start with a copy that's already been messed with, and we're just going to manipulate the data that we currently have. So if you do choose to follow along, you can go ahead and make a copy. Anytime you see the red ink like that, that's where we're going to go to make a copy. I'm going to go ahead and click on that make a copy, and it will open up a prompt to actually make a copy, which we're going to learn how to do today, how to make a forced copy. This is great for templates, right? I want you to have this as a template, and this makes it really easy for people to, they have view access. This eliminates the file make a copy. This just gives it a make a copy, and we actually customize the URL. You can see the URL doesn't have edit behind it. It has the word copy. And so we can adjust that URL to make it a forced copy when they click on the link. So I'm going to go ahead and make a copy. And if you remember from the previous training, what is best practice? Best practice is to actually name the document of your choice and do what? That's right, put it in a Google Drive infrastructure. So first thing we're going to do is change the name of it, just because copy of is just a little too vague. We're going to go up here and remove the copy of in this particular example. And I'm just going to go ahead and name it with my name at the beginning. And for today's training, I am in trainer 13. Then what's next best practice? Best practice is to put it in a folder infrastructure. We can do this multiple ways. We could go to File, Move To. We can go to File and select Move. Or you can go to the folder icon at the top next to the star and choose Move and put it in a folder infrastructure that we choose. In the previous training, we already created a folder called Google Docs Training. You can also create a folder on the go and always create the folder right here and do that. But since I already have a folder called Google Docs Training, I'm going to go ahead and put it in that folder. And then I'm going to select Move. So now I'm doing best practice, very similar in our Microsoft Office environment. We would do what? File, Save As. The good thing is now all we have to do is just name it and put it in a folder infrastructure. And the beauty of Google Docs, as mentioned before, it automatically saves, so no worries there. So you can see then you should have your own copy to manipulate if you're following along, either way in the video format later, or as a live stream if you can follow along at the pace that I'm in. Regardless, you can go back and try to mess with some of the things that we just learned. Either way, you have many ways to learn more about Google Docs today. So we are completed objective 1, which is to get organized and get our copy. Objective 2 is to learn how to voice type. Many of us have heard of the Dragon dictation tool, which is very expensive. Many ways to maybe dictate. There's a little outside tools that can help you dictate. With that, Google Docs already has this, and so does Google Slides and Speaker Notes, has the option to actually voice type. So where do you voice type and how do you do it? You would actually go to your tools. You would go to Tools, and you will notice there is an option to voice type. You go ahead and select voice typing. Please make note there is some keyboard shortcuts. If this is something you really want to know how or use quite often, you can do this. Before I dive into that, one question I get is, can we do this in Gmail? At the current time, there's no native dictation within Gmail. When people need this, so like this is a true question I get. I broke my wrist or I have carpal tunnel and I can't type very well. How do I compose emails? The workaround is go to Google Docs, and then you use the voice typing option, and then you would use copy and paste inside your email. There's actually going to be something really cool here at the end that actually will make it even easier in those scenarios as well. So we're going to go ahead and go to Tools and Voice Typing. If this is the first time going to voice typing, you will receive some prompts to allow microphone access to this particular app. So you would follow the prompts to allow microphone. That makes sense. You need your microphone to actually allow this to work. So when you get those pop-ups to allow microphone, in this case, please go ahead and click allow. Once you've done that, you would then get a microphone on the left-hand side. And I apologize, I do know there's a lot of keyboard shortcuts for this. I do not have that memorized to train this, but you know me, I will provide you a plethora of resources. This actually, if you go right here, will provide you more resources, a lot of commands, a lot of things you can learn within voice typing. So if this is something you really want to use, I strongly encourage you to check out that resource. Look at the keyboard shortcuts, look at the command lines like period, new line, etc., to get more efficient and within voice typing. Once you do that, you go ahead and click on the red button the big microphone, excuse me, and you just start speaking. As you can see, as you all know by now, that I kind of talk quite fast, and it will pick up everything I am currently saying. Period, new line, I think, I would love to see the sun come out today, period, new line, and etc. Once you're done talking, you just go up here and hit stop. So you can see it does a really good job of dictating the content when you are typing or dictating inside the Google Docs. So that is one of my favorite tips. And again, definitely check out the resource that's on here or on the objectives. There's a lot more information, again, with commands that you need to know. So we all use the dictation concept within our phones. So the same concept within Google Docs. And again, it works in speaker notes inside slides as well. So let's move on to objective 3. Objective 3 is insert header, footer, and watermark. So what we're going to do is we're going to insert a header called Google is amazing. We're going to insert a footer with your email address. We're going to navigate, add some page numbers. And at the end, in this objective, we're going to insert a watermark. Inserting watermarks is brand new within Google Workspace to allow you to have that option for you within Google Docs. So that's what we're going to go over. So you can insert headers and footers multiple ways if you choose to. You can always double click inside the area of where you think the header is at. You'll see then you have the header option. You also can go to, I don't want to tell you wrong, insert, and you can find header and footers there as well, page numbers and watermarks. So it's whatever you are looking to do. Remember, we're inserting something. We're inserting a header, we're inserting a footer, and we're inserting a watermark. Keyword insert, you will find those options under the insert menu. So again, as Google likes to provide us multiple ways to do things. So again, just know that you can get to those multiple ways. I'm going to double click inside my header as I shown earlier, and I'm going to go ahead and type a header like Google is amazing. Again, this is just random information, but you know what header you're supposed to have. If you're supposed to have Governor Reynolds on there and your logo, obviously those are all the things that you probably should follow your own agency guidelines. My job is just to educate you on how to insert a header. So I typed it, Google is amazing, so we can just say that's our header, that's our agency name, etc. You could do your normal basic formatting that we discussed in our previous training. We can align it to be centered, etc. Okay, so you would customize that. We learned in the previous training that we can adjust our margins by going where? File, page setup. So we can adjust our margins. So you could have a 1-inch header if you choose to, or a 2-inch header if you choose to, by going to File, Page Setup and adjusting our margin sizes. Very similar to what you're used to in Microsoft Word. Once you've kind of typed in your header, you do have a little option over here. It says Options. So again, I apologize. I don't remember the correct standard it is anymore. It used to be my main job. When you should have a header, when you should not. Probably the first page, maybe you do. The second page, you don't. you have those options to adjust your header format. So you could go to the options and you have the header format. You have all the options. As I mentioned, you could go here as well, or you can go to page setup as well, but you can adjust your margins. You have a different layout where the first page, different odd and even. Again, follow your own guidelines within your agency, but you do have the ability to customize when you want the header to show or when you don't want it to show. So make sure you click on the little options and you can see that you have some options for both headers and footers regarding how do you want it to be displayed. I'm not going to make any changes for that, but I just want to make sure you're aware of that. And the other options is you can add page numbers or remove the header. We're going to add a page number at the bottom in the footer is where I usually see it. So I'm going to go ahead and do a footer now. Same concept. We could go to insert, or we could go to down here and double click in the footer area. And again, I want to make note, I am currently in the view of print layout because it might not appear on other layouts, print layout, and I also have show document outline. Now that's not necessary, but for print layout, you do have the capability of double clicking. So it's important in this case, more so than some, that you know you can actually double click depending on your layout, and you can go to insert depending on your way of displaying your document. In this case, I've double clicked in a footer. Again, you would follow your own guidelines, but just for demonstrations purposes, I'm just going to go ahead and say, like most people have contact information at the bottom of a footer and on a footer. So I'm just going to go ahead and type in my address. Maybe if I spell it right would be good. So again, it's an email. You could do very similar formatting. We can always hit the Control K to insert a link. We can go up here and hit the link icon. Since it's an email, it's going to be a hyperlink and so much more. Again, formatting, not going to go over. We've already kind of talked about that. But let's say in this case, I'm going to tab over and I would like to add a page number on the bottom right-hand side. This is where you can go to the options. You have similar options just like we saw in the header, but this time I want to add page numbers. We saw the capability of adding the page numbers up at the top as shown earlier. You can do the same thing at the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and click page numbers. And then you have this similar pop-up that appears, but you can decide where do you want the page numbers. In this case, I want it in the footer. Do you want it to show on the first page? You decide. I don't know. Again, don't remember those guidelines. I should refresh my memory, but that's where you can customize it. What is the proper way? How do you want it to display? And once you've decided yes, page numbers, go ahead and hit apply. And you can see now that I'm in page 2, it's automatically going to calculate that. So you don't have to automatically, if you insert another page, it's automatically going to change that. So think of it as a formula. So if you insert another page, and this becomes page 3 now, you don't have to go back and do this. It's automatically going to populate the correct information. So maybe some of you may want to go over here and type in the word page, and then you have the number is going to be adjusting and dynamic for your document. So you do have the capability of inserting a page number on your document, which is really nice. If you notice in my objectives, just going to pop out of this real quick, I do like that. You can see I do have a footer. I have the title of it, kind of the date, and then I have the page number. Okay, so I do use that concept within the objective document. So going back, now we're going to do another thing. The other item in this objective 3 is to do insert watermark. Again, this is new. You could go to insert watermark. You have 2 options. You can add an image as a watermark or text. So let's go ahead and click insert watermark. You have the option to upload an image. You could go ahead and upload an image and make it a watermark. That's an option for you. I'm not going to do that for time constraints, but you can see you just follow the font or follow the prompt, select the image wherever it is, and you would add that. The new option that's kind of newer than the image came out first, is go ahead and go to text, and you can select insert text. So I'll just type in OCIO, and you can see like maybe it's copy, draft, whatever that you choose that you need for that particular watermark purpose, right? We see watermarks on documents. And so you can see then you have a new watermark throughout the document, how you want it, and so on. Okay. For today, I don't want to apply the watermark. It's going to be distracting, but I do want to make sure that you're aware of that. You can definitely change the transparency and etc. So just want to make sure you know that you can do that. There is two resources, excuse me, right here that can help you to learn more about watermarks. All right, let's go to objective 4, which is one of my favorites. Okay. So what we're going to do next is talk about Google Drawing. So if you've seen any probably Okta website, an example, there's tons of instructions on the Okta website. On the Google Help site, there's a lot of instructions. So my job, this is probably why I like it, my job is to do a lot of screenshots, show you the arrow, what to click on, do this, do that. So one of the things I use Google Drawing. Now, maybe some of you have never even heard of the tool Google Drawing. No worries. Guess what? Next week, that's what we're going to dive in and learn more about Google Drawing. Google Drawing is a similar way of considering it like a paint. Many of us know what paint is within our Windows environment. Google Drawing is a very similar format, same kind of tool, but it works really good within your Google Drive infrastructure. So you can do a lot of stuff with Google Drawing. So with that, in objective 4, many of us, let's do what you normally do. Let's say, for example, you found this and you want to send a screenshot, right? That's what we do. We would actually use the snippet tool, right? So let me pull up my snippet tool. Should have had that ready, sorry. Okay, so many of us use our snippet tool, right? I want to take a screenshot of this. I want you to understand this is what I'm taking a screenshot of. Like this is voice typing. This is the tool that I want you to use, right? That's a screenshot of that selected area. Many of us do that, right? And many of us would probably just paste that in the document. But I really want you to know that you need to click on that microphone to do this, right? So some of us might do actually this, like, okay, do that. Okay, that looks kind of sloppy, doesn't it? It looks sloppy. So if we're trying to make a professional looking document, you can actually insert a Google Drawing inside a Google Doc. So let's do that. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to go to insert. And last time we talked about images. Remember we did the smiley face? Well, this time we're going to actually annotate and do a tool called Google Drawing. So in Google Drawing or inside Google Docs, you have the option to insert a drawing, either a new one, which is what we're going to do now, and from our drive. We're going to do both because this is such a powerful tool. So we're going to go to insert, drawing, new. Remember, I took that snippet of the voice typing. And then most of us, like we normally do, once you've taken the snippet, what do? You Control V and it will paste it in the area that you have selected. In this case, it's Google Drawing, but it's inside my Google Docs. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Control V as in Velcro. And now I have this. Okay, that's great. It's almost identical what we would have done. But now I want to insert an arrow. Notice this is very similar. It has a lot of same features that you have in Google Docs. Or in Paint in the same concept, not identical, but the concept's there, right? And again, we're not going to go over all the things in here. That's what next week's training is. I'm showing you how you can use it with Google Docs. So let's say I select an arrow, and there you go. Click there. I can do all some fun things there. So now I'm going to go ahead and save and close. Now it treats it very similar to an image inside here. So when you click on this Google Drawing, you will notice you have the very similar things that we talked about in the previous training: wrap text, break text, front of text, and etc. You have a lot of things. You do have the option to, let's say now I want to make that arrow red. I could actually choose edit, or I can double click that drawing and now I can adjust the arrow to being red. Or whatever, right? Fill in the blank. It could be any change that you need to make on this. Maybe that image changed. And we all know, even in Word and even in Google Docs, just dealing with images can be a pain. Not going to sugarcoat it, right? But drawing in Google Docs makes it immensely better. Especially, what's the best reason why we love Google Docs is because we can collaborate, right? I can't tell you how many times Jolene and myself would actually be in a working document such as Okta and all their instructions. We were tag teaming. We had to get that out in a week's time, and we had to be together and get that done. We actually did a lot of drawing. I would do the screenshots. She would go in and fix the text. We were able to do all that in a short amount of time because of Google Drawing and Google Docs. So just kind of keep that aware of. What about the other way around? Let's say you do have this amazing drawing because you're going to take the drawing class next week and you're like, this is the best tool ever. And you're like, I want to insert that because drawing could be like an infographic. It could be lots of things, right? So what if I already have an amazing one? So if you want to follow along, you could do this. You can make a copy of a drawing that I've already created. Okay. So if I already made one called Amazing Drawing, if you want to click on that red one, you also have it in your objectives as well. You can make a copy of it. And same process, you should always do best practice no matter what type of document it is. You should name it and organize it. So I'm not going to miss best practices. Okay, so those are the same process we always do. We make a copy, we name it, and now we got this amazing Google Doc. I like it. Pretend it's an infographic, pretend it's a poster, whatever you want. But now I want this embedded or inserted in my Google Docs. So I'm going to go back to my working document. And this time I'm going to go to Insert. And I'm going to go to Insert Drawing. But this time, instead of selecting New, Insert Drawing, I'm going to go from Drive. Now, since I have this Google Drawing already, I'm going to go ahead and select it. And I'm going to select it and select that drawing. Notice it's only picking up the drawing. Now, this is like an embedded object, right? Well, you might want to do a static, meaning it's not going to change, and you would select Inserted Unlinked. It's not linked to the source anymore, right? You're just kind of putting it in there. I don't find that as a really good option because if you really want to use the source, we go back to we don't want multiple copies of something out there, right? We want to make sure whatever's updated, the original source is updated. Then link that source, right? So we're going to go ahead and link the inserted source. And now we have, like I just said, it's the same concept. You have all the image options that we talked about. Now that you're an editor of this Google Drawing, as you were because you made a copy of it, right? You can then double click this. I'm sorry. You can actually, this is a little different. I always forget that. You can go up here and you can open the source. So right now we can see that it's a red arrow, right? We can see it's a red arrow. I could go to open source and I will get to the same location as this drawing. Okay, it's the same thing. So let's say, just to give it a more dynamic, we'll move Google down here just to show you the changes that we make to this document. And I'm going to make it black just to show you that information. So I have originally made a change to the original source. In this case is the Trainer 13 Amazing Drawing. I'm going to go back to my document that I inserted that source. Notice now, since there were some changes to the source, I have the option to update. Okay, so I will select update. And now you're going to see all the changes that I've made to their original source. So what have I done? I don't have to update both of those twice, really, because the original source is updated. And now my presentation is the same way. So it is called a linked object. So you can always look at your linked objects, because if you link to a source, you have that option to view all your linked objects. Under tools, you will see anything that is pretty much a source that is embedded and you can always look and update all your linked sources at once. So if you have a really long document, a lot of us might copy and paste form results, which is a brand new feature inside a Google Doc. You have the option to update all those linked sources, okay? So multiple ways of kind of linking and updating the sources in your document, okay? So that's under Tools and Linked Sources. You saw that option when you click on this as well to look at your linked sources. So if you have a lot throughout the document, you'll definitely want to go this route. So that is Google Drawing in a nutshell. I strongly encourage you, if you even like drawing and like what I just showed you, I would strongly encourage you to attend the next training or watch the past training on Google Drawing. I always say it's a hidden gem within Google Drive. Many people do not know about that. So the next one is paragraph styling. So I'm going to go to Objective 5. I have to apologize. I do struggle training this a little bit. I know how to use it, but I have a hard time articulating it. So bear with me. One thing we do need to realize, paragraph styling is really important when we're dealing with accessibility in the sense of putting things on the web. Many people feel that Microsoft Word is the only one that can do paragraph styling that allow headers, header 1, header 2, header 3, header 4, header 5. That's incorrect. Google Docs can do the exact same thing in a very similar fashion that you're used to in Microsoft Word. It is still both called paragraph styling, where we actually make a header 1 and we add a header 2. You'll notice I are already using that feature to quickly navigate through this document. Every objective in this document already has a header already set to it. If you click on the Objective 5, you will see that I have already made it a header 1. How do you know that? By me just telling you. You can see that up here, that header 1 is what's selected up here. So right now, you'll notice that header 1 is already bold, and it has got those formatting features. I'm identifying any objective, and I identify it as a header 1. If you'll notice of these other options, if I click on Set Header 2 or Insert Table of Contents, the paragraph styling for that particular area is normal text. Normal text does not mean it's got hyperlinks throughout the document. It is just a true normal text. It's content. It doesn't really mean to be a header or a title of any sort, right? So let's do this and understand how it works. So we have like kind of a format concept where we have topic 1, Google Workspace, topic 2, Google Meets. You can see that that's kind of a header title of some sort, right? So is it a subheader? Is it a header 2? Is it a header 3? Is it a header 4? I don't know. You guys would determine that. But in this particular scenario, I want to set a paragraph style and make this a subheader in a sense. So header 1 is already set up because I already did that with Objective 5, 4, 2, 1, and etc. Right? I already set header 1 to make this an easy document to navigate using the outline mode, right? So let's add a second header. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight topic 1. I first need to determine what is the format I want for header 2. What is it that I want header 2 to look like? In this case, just to make it stand out, don't recommend it, but maybe we could do Roboto's a good format type. I'm going to change it to Roboto. I'm going to increase the font to 12. And I'm going to stand out and make this red just so we can see it better. I'm going to make the font color red. And why not? Let's make it bold. Voila. That's what I want my header to look like. Now I need to determine what header type am I going to use. Well, we know header 1 is already being used throughout this document. So probably not going to want to change that. So I'm going to go up here. I have topic 1 selected, Google Workspace. I formatted the way I liked, and I'm going to move on. So now I'm going to go up here in paragraph styles, and I notice that header 2 does not look the same way I formatted it. So if I actually click on this right now and select header 2. Don't do this if you're following along, but I'll just show you. Watch what happens. It's going to change it to the way that just looked. I don't want that. I want it to be the way that I just designed it. You can see how can this go both ways, right? I want it to header 2 to be that red font color. So I'm going to go over header 2 and I'm going to apply. I'm going to update. I have a hard time with this. Every time I just do it. I'm going to update header 2 to match what I just did. Notice now after I hit update, now my header 2 has the red font. So to get it the way that I want to display, you would format it and then choose update. Okay. Well, now let's say I want this one, topic 2, to be a header. Now I could make it bold and all that, but that's not going to make it a true header, right? The format is not going to truly do that. I'm not then going to indicate that it's a header, right? So I could still make it red. I could still make it red. I just want to point this out. This is something people like, that's not going to automatically make a header 2. Notice just because I made it red, it's still indicating it's a normal text. So I still need to make sure that this is considered a header 2. I would then need to, now that it's already formatted to the way that I want it, I just select, please assign header 2 to topic 2 Google Meets. And now you can see that it's applied that header. And you notice now, if you're doing this, you'll see the outline mode is changing. If this is header 1, header 2 would actually fall under header 1, right? We go chronological, 1, 2, 3, right? So you can see that that is working, okay? Now let's do normal text. Let's do normal text. So maybe you want your normal text to always read Roboto and you want it to be 12. Fill in the blank. Could be Arial 12. Follow your guidelines. But every time you can compose a Google Doc or even on a particular Google Doc, you want it to be this particular format. In this one, let's go with normal text being Roboto 12. So notice down here, this, for example, this one is saying it's Arial 11. Well, that's not the format that I want it to be. I want it to be Roboto 12 throughout my entire document. So everything that falls under the category normal text, I want it to be the same, right? I want it to be Roboto 12. So how do I do that? Like, you know how fonts change throughout your document sometimes and you're copying and pasting and you're like, what is this? I just want everything to be consistent. And this is a quick way to do this. So what you can do is, first of all, let's see how we have it. So in normal text looks like it is, let's go ahead, and this one is already, notice when I highlight this is already Roboto 12. When I select this area, it's Roboto 12. So I want it to be Roboto 12. So I like this format, but I don't like down here Arial 11. Okay, I'm not a big fan of Arial. I could do this multiple different ways. We kind of get the concept. You can update or whatever. So you can go to normal text. Now I want to update normal text to match what I have selected. So in this case, I have Roboto 12 selected. So I'm going to go ahead and update normal text to match. Notice now this down here. It should have done that. It should have done that. I don't know what I did wrong. Let's update, apply. Let's try that. So I can apply it. That's not how it should have worked. Maybe I did it wrong. Anyway, I think, like I said, I apologize already. Apply normal text, and now it should have done that. But for future, if I go down here, I think that's how it works. In the future, I can start typing. It's going to default to the normal text because now I have set the normal text to be Roboto 12. It's kind of tricky. It's one of those things you kind of have to play with, like how you want to do it. So once you get it set up, that's the beauty of it. If you always have to follow the branding guidelines like gray, red headers, so on. The people that work with accessibility know what standards you need to follow on. But what you can do is you can actually, once you get it set up the way you like it, you can actually go up here. Notice when you select the paragraph styling, again, we could go through this for title, subtitle, header 3, etc., all the above. You can go down here to options and notice that you can reset your styles if you choose to, like you really messed it up. You can actually, maybe this is a document you want to use your default style. So let's say going back to like I have it standardized, I could actually use my default, or I've done all the work on this document and I don't want to redo all this work. I can actually set my default styles. There's an amount of users that actually use paragraph styling. They know kind of the concept and how that works. I'm just showing you kind of what this can be used within Google Docs. And you can see it works in a very similar fashion. If you're used to it in Word, it works in a very similar fashion inside of Google Docs. They just don't see it up here for some reason because it's not in the ribbon. So with that being said, that's that. When you use paragraph styling, you also continue to have hyperlinks within your Google Docs. You'll notice in all my documents and all my objectives up here, in this example, this is a table of contents. Table of contents are great for long documents. Your kids learn table of contents in 5th grade, 4th grade, right? How to find something quickly within a book, right? Same concept in a document atmosphere. So up here, each one of these, as I mentioned, I do use paragraph styling for the purpose of to navigate long documents in instructions. So in here, you'll notice, like if I wanted to go to objective 3 or all the way down to objective 12, I could scroll down, obviously, but this is a table of contents. I then can quickly click on this and take me directly to objective 12. So it lets you hyperlink using those headers, header 1, header 2, header 3, header 4, and lets you navigate through a long document. So it's really a nice feature. Same concept works over here when you have it, okay? Many of us have to do that with standards and policies, right? You want to go to standard 101, this would also work. So once you really understand the paragraph styling, you can see how you can navigate a very long document and make it very interactive. So with that, let's go ahead on your working document that you're working on. Let's just see what the table of contents looks like now. So what you can do is, I didn't put one on this document, but let's pretend we do want to have one in here. You can actually go to insert and insert table of contents. You have two options. You can actually with the page numbers, which is interactive. So if it changes, it'll automatically, well, kind of automatically, have the page numbers on there. Or you can just not have the page numbers and do with just blue links. I choose blue links because page numbers, people don't print out my resources. So I usually just go with the blue links. And you can see now it even indented the topic 1 and topic 2, because why? Because that's header 2. If I did a header 3, it would go even further. So it's really nice feature. Let's say, for example, though, I need to change this to say Google Meets is awesome. Now, what I don't like about it, I will be honest, when I change Google Meet is awesome, notice it did not update my table of contents automatically. It's kind of like the linked objects. I would then have to refresh, update my table of contents. So it'll say Google Meets is awesome versus Google Meet now. So that is something when you do change a header of any type or a title, you have to go back to your table of contents, hit the refresh, reload, update button, and then it will do that correctly. So a lot of us are outlining. That's what objectives 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they're headers, right? You're already outlining the document in a sense. Then you put the content in. I mean, that's what your kids learn in school, right? We outline the document first. That's what the headers are for. Header 1, 2, 3, 4, you're outlining it, and then you fill in the content, right? So now once you get the final draft, then most people will insert the table of contents at the front or in the back, whatever they're doing. That's the purpose of it all, right? Writing 101, right? And I'm far from any expert, but I do know enough about that. So kind of be aware of that, like you have that capability, and so forth. The other thing is not that this matters really with the table of contents, it's just that you can highlight text and put borders on it. So like this is an example. Maybe you would want to have a border around the table of contents that might give it some flair. So you can actually do borders. You can go to format. Where is it at? Why do I not see it? Well, what am I? Where is it? Let's see. These are some things I don't use in a daily occurrence, so I apologize. Oh, there it goes. That's why it's under paragraph styles. Under paragraph styles, you do have the option to border and shading. So I could use borders, and you can see that you do have the capability of adding border content around an area. So if you choose to, you can do that. Not that that's a great example, but I could go up here and highlight this text, and maybe I want to put a border around that. Same thing, paragraph styles and border and shading. And you can select what you think you would want for that particular item selected. So again, not something I completely use very often, so I apologize, but you do have that option under format. Paragraph styles, you have the option to do borders and shading for those that like that concept. If you're really going to use like more of a table, we'll talk about that more, which is more interactive than just borders and shading. Okay, but I do want to remind you on the objectives and on this document, if you really are struggling, there's a lot of help, especially regarding the paragraph styling. If you want to click on that link, it does take you to a currents page and some other, I don't know if it takes you to a current, yeah, I think it takes you to Google Help page, excuse me, with more information to understand it as well. The next one is probably one of my other favorites besides, what am I going to say? Drawing. It is bookmarks. What that means is you can, in a place in an email, we're in objective 6, adding bookmarks and links to headers. So for example, we mentioned that the headers gives you the capability of linking throughout the document. So let's think of a policy and procedure document. I want you to refer to section 1.1111, when you were talking about something. You can actually make them click on that and refer back to header 1 at the top of the page, right? You can do that. You can also insert a certain location that maybe doesn't fall into a header and make it a bookmark. So let's do an example of that. Let's do the bookmark first. So in this case, it says contact information. So pretend that everybody in this long document cannot find the contact information, and you want to maybe each area you want to have that contact information there. And you just want to make sure they go to that one spot instead of updating it all the way through the document. So you might actually want to just centralize and put this one little area to always contain the most up-to-date information about contact, because maybe it changes every month, right? And you just want to change it in one location on this document. So I want to not make it a header in this scenario so you can learn how to do bookmarks. So you can actually select the area that you think you just want to have a bookmark to. You would put the cursor in front of there, and you can actually go to insert, and you find the option. Why am I struggling today? Insert format. Jeez Louise. It's like I can't find things today. Okay, really bad. Sorry. Insert bookmark. I'm like freezing. Insert bookmark, which is where I was going, and then I couldn't find it, and then I panicked. Insert bookmark, which I use the right click a lot of times, so you got to bear with me. Right click is how I do 90% of my stuff. So then you insert a little bookmark in this area. Awesome, right? This area has a bookmark. So with that, you'll notice right next to it, you have the option to copy the link. That's actually going to copy the link of that location. So let's just test my theory. If I copy this link and pretend that I'm going to send this in an email or whatever the case may be, And pretend this is a 20-page document, and I don't want to tell them go to page 17, blah, 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 section, blah, blah, blah. I want them to go to this particular spot of the document. So I'm just going to open up a new tab and show you, in theory, if I sent this link that I just copied from the bookmark, where is it going to go? So I'm going to go ahead and paste that. Before I hit enter, notice the URL is slightly different than the entire Google Doc. It has bookmark equals ID, etc., right? It's actually the location of that bookmark is actually another URL. And it's going to take me directly to that contact information. So it works that way, which is amazing, right? Amazing. I like that. So same concept now. You can actually, in this scenario, contact information here. Pretend this might be in a different area, right? Maybe I'm going to, just for fun, I'm going to return a whole bunch of pages. Actually, I'll insert a page break so we can see it jump. I'm going to go to insert page break. Okay. So now I've copied, let's just go back so you can see it. I'm going to go back over here. Actually, you can do it different ways. You can copy it, or you can actually do it this way. You can highlight, let's say, contact information here. So I want to insert, maybe it's a long document I want to put it in. So remember, I'm going to insert a link of some sort, right? So I'm going to go ahead and hit the link icon. Now, we did this, and I remember saying in the beginning training, like, we're going to come back to this a little bit more. And this is what I'm going to talk about. Notice that we have a whole bunch of headers in here that are already kind of favorites. We could actually insert it to different documents, which we're not going to do today at this moment. But you'll notice you also have headers and bookmarks. So you then can go over here, click on the arrow, and you can see these are all the headers information here. Well, I'm not looking for a header in this case. I'm looking for a bookmark throughout this page or this document. And I have one that says contact information. Well, I want to go there. I want the bookmark. I want that click here to go there. So now if I was scrolling through the document and I was like, who's the contact information? Click here. It's going to take me back to that area. Okay. So that's how you can do it within the document. The other thing is you can actually do a link to Google Drawings in the table of contents. What does that mean? So you can actually say, hey, I want to learn more about Google Drawing. Well, I can actually highlight the resource here. And let's say I want it to go back to the Google Drawing section of my document. Remember I said Google Drawing is my favorite part of Google Docs, one of my favorite parts. Well, I want them to say, hey, check out this resource. Well, I don't want to like type all the resource again about Google Drawing. I just want them to go directly to that Google Drawing section in our Google Doc. So in this case, same thing. I'm inserting a link. And this time, instead of headers and bookmarks, we're going to go to headings and bookmarks, excuse me. I'm going to go, and then you'll notice we can make it go anywhere that has a header. Right? We have topic 1, Google Meet is awesome. Remember, we did those, right? That's, even though that's a header, heading 2, but it still can be linked to that, right? But in my case, I really wanted to go objective 4, which is insert Google Drawing. Learn more about Google Drawing by checking out this area of the doc is really what you're telling them to do, right? So now if I've inserted that heading in there, I'm going to click on this. Notice it says TT, which would be same paragraph styling. I click on this, it's going to take me right back up to objective 4. Okay, we're making this like a web quest, right? An interactive web quest. Where do you want to go now in this very long document? Where do you want to go? Where do you want to go? So it's kind of a really cool way, and all we're doing is by using the paragraph styling and adding that in there and using the bookmarks, we have a lot of capability of navigating throughout the document. So the other way you can do, sometimes, actually that's changed. It allows you to do that copy. So you don't even have to right click. Because now that they've given you, this is brand new, because I would usually always say right click, copy address. Now that it gives you this little link, that tells you exactly where to go on that. So that's nice. Let's go back to the table of contents. Same concept works here too as well. So if I click on the translate area, notice then if I click on the copy link and now someone says, hey, I want you to go to the translate document area, you just copy this link and then paste it into wherever email you're going to, right? Paste it in an email saying, hey, you want to learn how to translate a document? You want to know about policy 6.1, whatever? You copy that in the table of contents or the header. You're still going to give them directly to that right area, because notice now in this URL, it doesn't say bookmarks, right? Now it says header. So each header that you create inside the document, each bookmark you create in the document has its own unique space in your Google Doc and its own URL. So now you'll notice when I went to that particular link by copying that, it went directly to Objective 11, to that spot on the document. So it just really works so smooth. Okay, let's see if I'm missing anything else. Well, that is just funny. Okay, so the next, oh, I already did that. I kind of went out of order there a little bit, but same concept. So we did that. All right, Objective 7, formatting to columns. And again, I'm honest, I'm humble, I'm frank. I don't use columns. I very rarely use columns. So I'm not a huge expert. So I'll just, you know, what you use. I definitely probably could figure it out if someone asked me, and I'll be more than happy to dive into it. But if you are a newsletter or maybe a communication specialist, this might be something you do need to play with. But you do have the capability of adding columns within Google Docs as well. And columns, as you know, as you start typing here and you go all the way down, it's just going to flow back up to the next column. It's like a newspaper, right? So you have that capability in Google Docs. So what I did here is you can do it multiple ways, but I've already added the content in here. So in Objective 7, you can see that I just pretty much copy and pasted Google Help's resources on how to do columns. Original. But pretend I want this to be in columns. Like I want this content to, maybe it's getting too long and I really want this in as a one-page format. Whatever the case may be, you can insert a column. So maybe this is the text that you have typed up, but now you want it in 2 columns or 3 columns, fill in the blank. So I'm just going to go ahead and highlight the text that we have there. And you have the option, I'm going to guess here today because I'm really off my game. I can't find things today for some reason. Format. It's under format. Format, and it's under columns. And now you have, like you said, or like I mentioned, you can do multiple columns. You have even more options. But just for this quick demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and select the 2 column, which is kind of what you normally see. I'm going to go ahead and select the 2 columns under format. And it automatically put those 2 in columns. Same thing as you can reverse this and add the columns in there and then start typing. Either way it works. I just want to kind of show you that you can add columns if you're used to. It's in that particular area that we just have columns. So just kind of be aware of that. It's not a huge feature that's used, but sometimes it can be very useful depending on your needs. Objective 8 is where I'm going to take you outside this document for a little bit. So if you remember, we're going to create a brand new document on the go. And we're going to come back to this document. So if you are following along, probably really hard to do in the pace that I'm going. But you could be definitely messing around with your own document. But what we can do is we're going to go open a brand new document to do the next building block concept. So if you remember, a quick way to create a document on the go is to do what? Docs.new. So you would just go ahead and type in docs.new in the URL box, and it will give you a blank canvas. Just a quick reminder, we learned that in the beginning training and how you can navigate and start a new one. The reason why we're just starting a new Google Doc is we're talking about building blocks, also known as Smart Canvas. So Smart Canvas is going to be a new terminology that you're going to have to learn, not in a bad way. It's just going to give you some more options within Google Docs. Google is really known that you work together, right? Two heads are better than one. So it just reminds you that there's a lot of ways to do that. One of the things that they have done is inserted a building block for meeting notes. The other new one is for inserting an email. These are both fairly new updates. So again, I can't encourage you enough to sign up for Currents. You would then know this already, how to do this. So with that, I just want to point out, you guys stay where you're at, but on the Google Doc, on Objective 8, you will notice there's several different resources here for you as well. It talks about smart chips, which is another vocab that you may be aware of. May need to be aware of. Smart Canvas, it talks about transformation collaboration in Google Workspace. In other words, more about Smart Canvas and what's coming down the road. So again, more things are coming. So we have the two things that we're going to talk about today and demonstrate is the email draft template, which is a resource there for you, and creating meeting notes. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive into that. So where you have under is, first of all, let's talk about this. When you start a new document, have you noticed that there is a type @ to insert available for you? So right now, do what Google's trying to prompt you to do. If you type in an @ what happens? It gives you all these options that you may not have realized. It's, in other words, it's like the right click on steroids, to be honest. It's got a lot of options for you. It has building blocks. It has the new one that we're going to discuss here in an email. It has ways to do smart chips, like I can add a person. Lots of different things in here. Insert media. So again, I could spend one whole session of the 5 million things that we've talked about today, like paragraph styling. Isn't there like 3 or 4 different ways to do something? So that's why you see me stumble, like, because I want to show you one way, but there's 5 different other ways to do it, or we're all creatures of habit. We know how to do that. Well, guess what? Google's going to throw us one more way to learn how to do something that you may want to know how to do. So the @ symbol is a quick way to use your menu option. So if you struggle with Google Docs and you still can't find things, use the @ and you will probably find what you're looking for. So use the @ is another menu option within Google Docs. So @ is another menu way to navigate through Google Docs. So with that alone is a great feature. So with that, that's kind of called the menu option and smart chips, all tied into that whole thing, okay? Well, let's do one of the newer ones, the building blocks. Another way of saying building blocks is templates that Google's given us to work more efficiently and collaborating with different ways of what we're normally, our normal daily tasks. We don't want to, Google wants us to work on other things, right? So they're giving us easier ways to do our normal daily tasks, like a meeting notes, agenda, keeping track of what's going on. You can do this two-folded. I'm going to show you the Google Doc way. You'll notice you could have used the @ sign, and you saw that there was a building block called meeting notes, okay? Or you could go to insert. Again, multiple ways. Notice now under building blocks is a new option. You have meeting notes and email drafts, 2 new templates that you can use from. Meeting notes came out first, so let's go ahead and go to meeting notes. Either way, use the @ sign, go to insert that. And what's going to happen is your screen's going to look different. It's going to pick up your first calendar invitation that you have on there. So you might have a full schedule. I'm going to go ahead and just choose the one that I have. This is not going to be a very good example, but if you have one, it's actually going to ask you several things. It will actually tell you it's going to tell you when it is. It's going to give you the name of it. It's going to tell you who the attendees are. So it's already doing all those manual tasks that you have to do. And it gives you a template. Like here's the notes, here's the action items. Okay. And the same thing is like if you wanted to then go down here and do the @ sign and add the next meeting. You could choose, meeting notes again, and then select the next one. So you're just ongoing each meeting, right? However way you want to do it. What it does, though, there's several things that you could do with this, okay? You have the same capability inside Calendar, first of all. You'll notice now in Google Calendar, when you have an event, you have the option to create meeting notes. It's the same thing as this. Google's given you multiple ways to do the same thing. Okay, so it's the exact same thing. When you do it from the Google Docs environment, you then show attendees don't have access to the document. Well, that seems not very efficient. So I would say, no, attach and share. Attach this to the event that I have. Then it's there as well, right? And make sure they have access. So I probably would do that. But if I don't want to, I don't have to. Do you have options? So notice then I'm trainer 13. Well, I want trainer 1 to have access. It's going to double check me one more time. Are you sure? And what rights do you want that attendee to have access to? So I'm going to go ahead and give trainer 1 added rights to that upcoming event. Okay. And if I would go to my calendar right now, this agenda notes is going to be attached to that April 20th evaluation test 2 event. Okay. So that's how that works. Okay. That's one. I'm going to go ahead and do another Docs New just to give you a clean slate. We're going to do the next building block. And I'm not doing best practice right now because if I was creating something on the go, what should I do? Name it and put it somewhere. But for time purposes, I'm just going to not do that right now. Now this one I'm more excited about, to be honest. I have a lot of gifts, but writing is not one of them. It's just not. I'm just not. And so I like to compose long emails, and then I'm like, I don't think this sounds good. And so I need someone else to look at it. And so a lot of important emails that I go out, I have either Jolene, John, or Chad looking at it and make sure, or maybe it's just, I'm not sure I got the right policy for this, or is this what we're trying to say as a Google team? Fill in the blank. I want collaboration. So, but I do need to send it in the email format, right? That's the formal communication tool that we have, right? And so what I'm going to do then is I would actually, now I get to do the following. And this is funny because John even sent me an email. It's like, are you excited about this? I said, yes. So in building blocks, you have a new one, email draft. What was the other way I could do that? It's just the @ sign, right? And then pull down email draft, right? Multiple ways. Regardless, this is a new building block. Insert email draft. And this is what you guys are, for those that get frustrated, you'll really love this. So inside here, I can actually send an email from someone to someone in here. So, and it's giving me the pop-ups. I'm going to ignore it because I'm going to train you on the pop-ups. In the to one, I'm going to go ahead and type OCIO. So, sorry, I hit the wrong button. If you hit the @ sign, it's actually going to pull up the directory. So I can start typing. The @ sign is where you're pulling up the smart chips. So you can see then once I type the @ sign and I can start typing in the email person's name, it's going to pull up my contacts. So I'm going to go ahead and send it to trainer 5 today. And I'm going to send it to trainer 1. That is who I want to send it to. I could CC, repeat the same process by typing in the @ sign, BCC, repeat the same process with the @ sign. Then I want to type in a subject. Okay, whatever it is, you can do that. And then you would compose your email. Okay, I'm not going to spend time typing up an email. You compose email. What would you normally do if you even have the purpose of it typing in a Google Doc? What's the purpose of actually typing in a Google Doc? More than likely, someone else needs to look at it, right? That's the purpose of this. So then you would probably share this to fill in the blank. Jolene, John, Chad, whoever needs to look at it. Maybe a group of people. You get all that benefit of collaborating, adding comments, suggesting, all those things that we've already talked about in the beginning training. But this is what's going to make it so powerful and effective, communication. But what's even better is maybe this is a template. Maybe you have to have a canned template and administrator A, B, C, D, E, whatever they have to do. We want it to be the same communication that's being sent out. You have this in your email correspondence folder, administrative A, B, C, D. This is what we send out for problem A, B, C, D. Get it? Got it? This is really cool. Then it's not a separate copy they have in their canned templates or whatever the case may be inside Gmail. They would just click on this little blue button when they're ready to send it, and whatever's on that document is going to pull up into Gmail, and I hit send. And I still get to tweak it because it's not actually sending it yet. It's just previewing it. And then I get to make one more conscious decision to hit send, right? You could, if this was a true template, you leave those two blank, right? Then you put the subject line in, and then, okay, now I'm not going to send it to trainer 5 or 1. I'm just going to then send it to trainer 1. But regardless, whatever is in that document, it's going to pull up. Now I can then adjust it if I need to from here, whatever the case may be, and I hit send. How cool is that? Like, amazing. Amazing. I think this is one of the best things they've come out with in a long time. That's really, really cool. So again, if you really like what more is coming down the road, I cannot emphasize the resources that I put on the objective has a lot more. So Smart Canvas was a big publication on the Cloud Air. They've got more to come. More to come. So again, sign up for Currents. You would have already known about both of these. The next thing is insert table and to-do list. Another kind of push forward, I should say, regarding Smart Canvas. So back to the working document. We're done with Doc New for right now. But back to our working document, we're actually in insert objective 9, and we're doing a table. So tables have made a lot of improvement. Another update. Another huge update, tables is a lot easier to work with within Google Docs than it was a couple of weeks ago, to be honest. So there has been some improvements. The other part of this, though, is like a table can be done for a project manager, right? It could be like, here is so-and-so needs to do this, and so-and-so needs to do this, and I want you to check it off when you're done, okay? Task, to-do list, what have you done? Whatever the case may be. So I kind of using that example as a good case scenario inside Google Docs. So if you wanted to insert a table, backtrack, you would go to insert, I hope, today, I'm off my game. You would go to insert table, and this should look very familiar to you. It's the same concept in Word. Insert table, how big do you want your table to be? How many rows, how many columns? Select it, it will then insert it inside your Google Doc. That hasn't changed. That's nothing too new there. So I already kind of done that. So I've already added an owner, document, header, and task as the header of the table, okay? And I decided that I accidentally actually decided to make it 5 columns. And you can see that it only needs to be 4 columns. So this is where I'm gonna tell you, do best practice when you're working with tables. 1, right-click some more, because that's where you'll find most of the options that you need regarding tables. So in this case, my scenario is I want to delete column 5 because that's too many. I do not need that 5th one. So I'm going to right click, and I want you to notice now I have all these options. Insert, delete table, distribute rows, distribute columns, sort table, table properties. I could spend forever just here as well, right? I don't train that way. I just want to make sure you can find what you're looking for. Pin header row, that is new. You can actually sort a table, that is new. Okay, those are 2 new features within tables. Okay, and so pinning the header row, unpinning the header row, sorting the table. A lot of people don't know about distributing columns and distributing rows. Hello, it makes it even, which we will do here in a minute. But in this case, I want to go ahead and delete column. So I put my cursor in column 5, and now I want to delete that column. Then, awesome. All right, it already kind of distributed automatically, but let's say it was like that and I moved it over, and that just looks funky, right? It doesn't look right. So what a quick way to fix that is you can actually distribute columns. Wow, it just organized them evenly across. Okay, same concept with rows. So again, close fails, try one of these, see what happens. Like that didn't work for you, try it, undo, go to the next one, try it, undo. Oh, That worked great for me. So you have that option. So again, if all else fails, definitely right click within that. The other one that I'm not going to dive into too much is table properties. This is where you get that little menu item on the right-hand side. This is where you can customize tables even more. If you like this view as much, like alignment is important sometimes. Do you want it vertically, horizontal? Color, maybe you want the background of the table border to be blue. I don't know. You tell me, right? So you can adjust a lot of things within the table properties as well. Again, there is brand new updates. You can definitely check out those two as well. What's powerful in here, though, is the smart chips. Again, part of the smart canvas, okay? So with that, remember, if we hit the @ sign, it gives us a whole bunch of different options. And one of those options is to add people. So again, think of this particular table as a to-do list. On project A, here's the people I'm working with. Well, trainer 1 is the owner of this document or this task, whatever it is. So I have now put trainer 1 in there as a chip. And I did that by clicking the @ sign. When I do the @ sign in a Google Doc, it then also, when you add a person, it's going to prompt you, do you want to give access to this particular person? Well, if you're tagging this person in a sense, probably you do. Maybe you're not ready for that yet, but you could decide to share it to trainer 1 from here, because I mentioned trainer 1. If I mentioned her, I needed to do something. Don't you think she needs to at least know about it and see it, right? Again, your decision. I'm going to go ahead and share it. I can determine what access, as we just did before. Same concept, right? Well, now let's say I want to actually add a document in here. So let's say I have the @ sign again as a quick menu item. And you can actually select files that you already have been used frequently. Sorry, it's getting, oh, I got lost there. I got too quick, Abby. Sorry. So giving me a minute here. And then you can see I have files options down here, and I can select a file or whatever the case may be. I could go further into my files, and you can see it's pulling up even more, and I can select any of these that I think should be in there. Whatever it is, right? You select your file that you think would be a good document. Maybe it doesn't have to be a document. This is just my example of a table. I'm just trying to show you some of the other smart chips that you have. What about a date? So you can hit the @ sign, and you can actually select a date as well. From here, you can see, and this doesn't have to be just in tables. We realize that by now, right? So it's just an example of using the Smart Canvas option here. But maybe you want to put the today's date, tomorrow's date, whatever the case may be. You have some formulas that can help you that automatically bring you the calendar update. You get to actually select the date from there. More smart chips available. So now let's say we want to add a task and you want to like make it a checklist. Did you complete this task, right? So you could say send communication, right? Well, how do I know if that person did it? Well, you might know it by other means, but right, this is your working document. I can actually make this a checklist, right? I could do a checklist. I can either use the @ sign, or I could go up here and use the checklist option. And now trainer 1 comes in, looks at what she needs to do. She needs to work on this document and needs to send it out on April 26th, and her task is to send it out. Check. Done. Now you know. Now you know. And the beauty is you can actually right click, and you can see lots of things there, such as highlight it. I'm sorry, I should highlight it. But highlight it, you can see then when the changes took place as well. When you right click on an item and changes have been done by somebody, we have the file version history, which is nice. But let's go back to the scenario when it's a long document and you're like, who did what and who did, all those things. You can actually see the show editors and who did what in that area. So instead of this trying to go back to the file version history, If you highlight anything in your particular document and you're like, who made the changes to this last? Trainer 13 did. And I can see what they changed. So just be aware of that. So a lot of bells and whistles with that right click, and you can see all the changes that took place. So just be aware that you can highlight a certain area and see who made the changes. Let's go. I want to do the next two. I'm going to go out of order just a little bit, just because of time. I want to go ahead and do objective 11 and 12. They're kind of fast ones, and then I will do number 10 at the end. Objective 11 is translate documents. So you can make a copy of this document if you choose to. I'll go ahead and make a copy of this just so I don't mess with the one I'm working with. Not that you would, but if you make a copy of it, you'll have something to kind of mess with. Make a copy. This is a document that is currently in English, right? It's an English document. If you make a copy of it, J&J Google Tour is back, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so now you have someone coming into the office and like, I don't speak English, but you want them to be able to read this document or whatever the case may be. You can actually use the translate option in Google Docs. So under tools, let's say this is your original English document. And I know we have a lot of standards we have to follow, but if you're in a bind, you follow your agency guidelines, but we do have at least a quick way to translate within Google Docs. You can go to tools and go to translate, Google Translate document. And what this does, it will take the original format, the original document, the original text, and make a new copy. It's a brand new copy. And you could select the language that you're trying to change it to, or to what interpretation. I'll just pick Arabic because this is just quick and easy. And obviously I will not be able to read it. And we're going to go ahead and hit translate. It's making it a brand new copy. So your original one is the same, and now you have a brand new copy in that particular language that you have selected. Again, not perfect, as you can see, but it does do a good, at least a quick solution for you. And then you can have your experts within your agency look at something if you need to have it in a different language. Okay, but at least gives you the tool to translate. And so on, and vice versa. So I can try to translate this one into English, right? I can translate this document into English, vice versa. So Microsoft Office files that you actually have stored in Google Docs, in Google Drive, you can't do that. Okay, it has to be a true Google Doc format to actually use the translate document option. There's a few other things that you cannot do. We've talked about in the beginning training. Translate is one of those scenarios where you do not have that in the Microsoft Word. So you would have to save as Google Docs to actually translate it. Objective 12, compare documents. Let's pretend you have contract A and contract A both in your Google Docs in your thing. And you're like, I don't know which one I should be using, right? Or maybe this is contract 2022 and contract 2021. What has changed in the verbiage of those two documents? Well, Google can help you with that. Or you have a person that has been copying or stealing, or not copying, or borrowing their text. Like teachers would love to know, hey, that poem looks identical as my other lady in my class, right? Lots of reasons. So you have the capability of comparing two documents. So with here, I'm going to make a copy of both of these documents here in a minute. They're very similar. And you guys can do the same thing. You're going to make a copy of these documents. I'm going to go ahead and make a copy of this other one while it's thinking. I'm getting a little tab anxiety here, so I'm going to go ahead and close my tabs to the right here. I am not doing best practice and put it in a file, which I should. So as you will see here, this is my contract A, communication A, okay? Jessica and Google team is back. You can kind of see it's just a little short paragraph. Not a great example, but if you had a big contract, this is going to be very helpful. This is communication 1, okay? Communication 2 very similar, but I can't remember, don't know, which one do we want to use? Fill in the blank. Looks very similar. Obviously, we can obviously see the differences, physically, but in a sense, but pretend that we don't, okay? But you can see there's some changes between the two documents. But you know what? I don't ever really trust my eyes. I'd rather see it and compare it. So I'm going to let Google do the work for me. So it doesn't matter which one you select first, right? You're comparing one or the other, right? So I'm going to stick with communication one. I think that's the first version. I'm going to go ahead and select the first one that I'm on, communication one. And now I want to compare documents. So I'm going to go ahead and compare documents. Well, then you need to select what document are you comparing? Well, I'm going to go ahead and find that one I just made, which is copy of. I'm going to go to recent because I was just on it. So that'll help me find it faster. But it says copy of trainer 2. That's the one I just did, right? Training 2 communication. That's the one I just looked at. Okay. I'm going to go and select the one I want. And I want the attribute differences to be trainer 1. I want to include from the selected document. So if there's anything in there, it would include it. So I want to see it's going to give me like suggested attributes throughout the document to know that these were different changes. So it's actually, I have communication 1, I have communication 2, and then it's going to create another document that will give me a breakdown of the comparisons. So you got the first 2 originals, and then it's going to make another copy because really, what are you doing? You're actually taking these 2 copies and writing notes that you see the difference. That's what you're doing. So I'm going to go ahead and hit compare. It's making a new document. Comparison is ready. All right, let's open that up and see the differences. It will give you some comment threads and the attributes were changed by trainer 13. Some color differences to help determine what is what. And you can see the differences between the 2 documents without physically comparing the 2. It's a great start. So you can see that it says trainer 13 made this bold, so-and-so. The font size, this was added. Now you know exactly what the difference between those 2 communications are. So that was objective 12, which is comparing documents. And I cannot emphasize enough that in the document with the objectives, there's tons of information here for you. So don't forget that. I do want to end. I'm going to end on time today. That's good. Is the objective 10. So this is where I'm going to tell you, check out the resources first if you don't understand what I'm trying to do. But we can adjust the URLs to help us or help our end users navigate. What action are you asking them to do? What you can do is you can actually make a forced copy as I made you guys do throughout the entire document. Wasn't that easier than telling your users to file make a copy? So if this is truly a website or something, you can adjust that. If you already gave them view access, you're just going to adjust the URL to say copy instead of view. So I can't tell you this little URL right here, this resource, that's kind of a no pun intended. This resource is where I go because I can't remember them all. Like, what am I trying to do now? I know I can do fill in the blank. How do I do this? So these are good Google Drive URL tricks is what they are. So you can kind of customize. I mentioned in Drive training that the URLs are probably the most important thing within Google Drive, knowing that it's a separate document, right? And so with that, it's like having a whole bunch of retaining websites inside your Google Drive. And now you're just becoming a web editor and being able to do some of these things. So like you can see, if you have to understand in Google Drive that each file has its own unique identifier. So for example, in our objective, you'll see that this docs.google/document D, after the D, there is a long unique ID for that document. It's like the social security number for that Google Doc. That is the document ID. It belongs. So if you see a resource out there that says find the document ID, that's it. That's the document ID is up there, right? And then you can adjust after that to a different format. Example, copy. Now, before I hit copy after that edit, I have to make sure that the permissions are set right. If they have view access and you're allowing them to make a copy, you have to make sure it's view access. It's not going to be private because they still can't access that ID, right? So you still have to make sure your permissions are set right, correct? So your permissions, if you are going to make them go to file, make a copy, what's the first thing they have to have at least? View access, right? So you need to know that your permissions still are really important. But if you wanted to put this template or this document, and I want them to make a copy of it without messing it up, I would then change the URL to copy. And then this is the URL I would put on a website or on a doc. Find and make a copy of this template, right? Same concept as if I wanted to, let's look at the notes because I don't want to take you wrong. Because I don't do this at a regular basis, but you can do in a similar format as a PDF. You can force PDF. And again, that's kind of a weird thing not to do very often. But you do have two resources, how to force copy. You've got a lot of resources. I don't know what your purpose is. I just want to let you know that you can adjust the URL. So for example, now that we know that the unique ID is in our URL up here, this is our unique ID for each document. It's going to be different for each document. Again, each social security number for each document. Once you've got that path figured out, notice, because there's the doc ID, I just educated you what the doc ID is, right? And it's telling you right there, right? We just talked about it. Well, after the slash, you can do so many other things, such as export format to a PDF. You have ways to make it a PDF if you want. Instead of attaching this long document, provide them the link. Click here to view the PDF. And it'll be a dynamic PDF because it's actually going to make them download that each time. So, example, if I would make a change to this document now, and 2 days later, and I've already sent it to them, but I gave them that PDF link, the changes are going to be reflected because they're actually, what they're actually doing is file, download at that time, right? So it's kind of confusing, I get it, but once you understand that it's kind of a dynamic URL, we know that Google loves the URL portion of it. What action are you asking them to do under the file menu? File, make a copy, the copy URL works. File, download to a PDF, that's going to work for them. So whatever is on that document at that time, they go to that URL is what you're going to get when you populate it. And again, there's a lot more other ones out there. If you read our newsletter, that was one of those concepts. If I made a mistake on that newsletter that I sent out, you guys wouldn't have known unless you looked at it the exact time I made that change, because it was not just a static PDF that was sent out. If I made a change to that Google Doc, that PDF, when you clicked on it, was reflected. So just that's a great example of using and customizing those short URLs. There's not short URLs, but those URLs. I'm really out of breath today. I don't know quite why. But with that, I'm done talking for at least for today. I want to thank you for joining Advanced Google Docs. As I mentioned, we are doing Google Drawing next week. I'm excited about that. If I do a similar curriculum as I did last time, we will do a poster, maybe an invite, fun things, but you learn the tools within Google Drawing. For those, again, it's similar to Paint, not as strong as Publisher. It's in between, but you get the collaboration piece. And then we'll talk about Jamboard as well. We can kind of tie both of those in, kind of two different tools, but kind of combined similar things there too as well. With that, if you have any questions, you know how to get a hold of me. And I appreciate you taking the time to learn more about Google Docs. And I can't wait to hear any success stories you feel like sharing. All right, with that, have a great day. and see you guys soon.